Thank you, Randy Mastro, for your over-the-top and very generous words. Thank you, Randy, for your service to the city and state and all the great things you've done, including chairing this extraordinary organization. And Randy, I'm going to thank you for something you don't even know about. Nearly 30 years ago, you were a hotshot deputy mayor for one Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Big personality, all over the papers, big guy. And I was on a first date. And lo and behold, at Steak Frites, you walked in to have a dinner, all of you with your big persona. And it helped me and my date have a topic to talk about, making fun of you and Rudy a little bit. But it helped to avoid the awkwardness of a first date. And that first date went pretty well, because that first date and I just celebrated our 24th wedding anniversary last week, thanks to you. So Allison and I, who's here, thank you for your service that night. Thank you. Betsy, thank you for you and what everyone does at Citizen Union. That's so important and so necessary in these times. And I'd like to congratulate my co-honorees for their recognition and also for their great works, particularly their great works for the election and everything that's needed. And I have to tell you, I am so thrilled to be honored tonight by Citizens Union because of all the important work they do for our city and state, but particularly the work they do to enfranchise New Yorkers. And I've spent a better part of the last year and a half dealing with folks trying to do the opposite, trying to disenfranchise voters and citizens. And after I served as counsel in the first impeachment, I represented Pennsylvania and Michigan in connection with the elections and then the challenges to those results. And in some measure, the 2020 presidential election was a high point of our democratic system. In the midst of an unprecedented pandemic, when people were afraid to vote, when election workers were afraid to go to work, states adjusted, they facilitated the vote, and we had the highest turnout ever for a presidential election, a true high point in our democratic system. But unfortunately, there was also a low point, and that was the unprecedented attacks on the integrity of our election and the results that we saw. They required the courts to step in to say that the elections were actually honest and the results were not stolen, despite those fanciful claims. It required the states to step up and certify the results, despite attacks, death threats on election officials of both Democratic and Republican Party, and for those patriots to actually certify the results, even though many of them in states like Georgia had supported the losing candidate. And those efforts to undermine the core principle of our democracy, free and fair elections, were ham-handed, Three Stooges-esque at best. At best. But they had an impact. They moved a mob of people who were so upset that the election of their candidate, the president, was stolen, and they knew it was stolen because the president told them it was stolen, that they attacked another branch of government to try to interfere with the peaceful transfer of power for the first time in our nation's history. It didn't happen during the election before the Civil War. And when I went down to Washington 3 weeks later to serve as chief impeachment counsel for the House, I saw the damage to the Capitol. We walked by it every day. I saw the damage to the psyche of the people who were there, the elected officials, the reporters, everyone. And I spent a lot of time worrying about the damage to our democracy when people started to lose faith in the integrity of our elections, or that a losing candidate would respect the result in the greatest democracy of the world. And I also became concerned because although the efforts to challenge the election were so amateurish, they actually provided a roadmap for those who had more time and greater focus to try to challenge and undermine our fair and free elections. And before this experience, I sort of believed that the core principles underlying our democracy were ingrained in our laws and our election systems. And what I really came to learn is that those principles were more guidelines that nobody dared challenge for hundreds of years because of the universal acceptance that they were at the heart of what makes our democracy so important. And nobody had the temerity to suggest that the votes shouldn't determine who gets elected. And I am deeply worried that now this Pandora's box has been opened and suggestions have been made about the role state legislatures can play in overruling the vote of the people, and all sorts of other shenanigans that can suggest something other than the vote of the people should determine the winner of an election, that we all have to take that as a call to arms. A call to arms to protect the right to vote, a call to arms to protect the counting of that vote, and a call to arms, and this is the kicker, to protect that the winner is the candidate who received the most votes. Now, I take heart somewhat in that I think our founders anticipated these problems might arise in a variety of different ways. One example is Benjamin Franklin, when he was in a city that my opponent in the second impeachment referred to as Philadelphia. He was there in 1778 for the Constitutional Convention. As he was leaving Independence Hall, somebody in the crowd said, "Doctor, so what is it, a monarchy or a republic?" And he famously said, "It's a republic if we can keep it." And it is through the works of the Citizens Union and other organizations that are fighting for the right to vote, the counting of the vote, the integrity of the vote, that is helping us to keep the republic. So I'm so grateful for the work of everyone here at the Citizens Union and so honored to be receiving this award tonight. Thank you all for your support.